Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of our Node.js and Sequelize application. In the last video, we went ahead and made it so we could display our gigs from our database. We implemented the UI from the HTML files, so we have our home page, which isn't functioning just yet, as well as the add page, which we're gonna add that functionality right now. Okay, so we want to be able to submit this form and have that data go into the database. We also want to add some error checking. I know that's it's separate from Sequelize, but I want this to be a decent application. So we want to have some server-side validation. So let's jump into VS Code and let's go into our app.js file because we're going to be getting data from a form. So we need to use the body parser, which needs one line of middleware. So I'm going to put this right under where we did our handlebars middleware. And let's say body parser, and we just want to do app.use, and let's say body parser.url encoded. I want to pass in an object here with extended, which is going to be equal to false. Okay, so that's the only line we need here. So we'll save that, and our app.js should be all set. So let's close that up, and let's head over to we want to go to our routes and then gigs.js. Okay, so right now, if we make a post request to /add, it's just gonna put this stuff in, simple WordPress website, all this stuff, and obviously that's not what we want. We want to catch the form data. So let's open up our add.handlebars file, which has our form, and there's a couple things we want to do here. For now, let's just add in the form tag an attribute of action, and we want to set that to /gigs/add. Okay, and we want to make sure that we add the method of post because we want this to be a post request since we're adding data to the server. So that should be good for now. Let's save that, and let's head back over to our route here. So router.post/add, and all this sample data here, we just want to completely get rid of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull all this stuff out, the title, technologies, budget, and so on. We want that to come from the form. So instead of having it come from just a static data object, we want to have it come from request.body because all this data will be available in the body. Okay, because all the variables here, title, technologies, they all match the name attribute for each field here. All right, so that'll get the data. Now we could just insert it, but I want to make this a little more robust and just add a little bit of server-side validation. Now our form does have required attributes, so we do have some client-side validation. I'm going to get rid of those for now so we can actually test it. Because you want to have client and server-side validation in your apps. So let's go ahead and just remove all those requireds. And inside here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize an errors array. Okay, and then I'm going to check for each field, right? And then if the field isn't there, like if they don't put a title in, I'm going to add to that errors array an object with a text value of please add a title. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say if, and there's plenty of ways to do this. There's plenty of ways to add validation. I'm just going to do it just a pretty simple way. So we'll just say if no title, then we'll take the errors array and we'll push onto it an object with a text value of please add a title. All right, let me just put say validate fields. Okay, and we can actually copy this. We're going to have 4 of these. So we want to do it for the title, we want to do it for technologies. So for the message here, we'll just say, please add some technologies. And then let's do it for description. So please add a description. And let's also do it for contact email. Okay. Okay, so here we'll just say please add a contact email. Now budget, I'm gonna let budget be blank, but I also want it to I want it to say unknown if they don't add a budget, but we'll do that after. We'll do that after we check for these. So right below where we did all these if statements, we want to check for errors, and we can do that easily because we just have to say if errors dot length, so we want to check the length of the errors array. If it's greater than 0, that means there's an error. Okay, then we'll put an else here. And we want to move the insert, okay, this whole insert, we want to move that into the else. Okay, let's just tab that over. All right, so if there's errors, then what do we want to do? We want to re-render the form, right? So we'll say res.render, and the view is the add view or the add template. But we want to add in a couple things or send a couple things. One is going to be the errors object, or the errors array that has the errors object that include all the messages, because we're going to want to display those to the user. We're also going to send whatever they type in for these variables here, because we don't want the form to just go blank. We want to add these as values. So I'm actually going to put those in here as well. So we can just go like this. Okay, that way we send all this stuff back to the form. So I think that's good. Let's go ahead and save this. And let's head over to add.handlebars, and we need a way to display all of our errors. Now remember, it's coming into the view as an array of error objects. So I'm going to go under the paragraph, and I want to loop through the errors with each. So we'll say each errors, and we'll close that each. So for each error, I want to have a div with the class of error, which I've already styled in the template, and then a paragraph, and we want to display whatever that text is of the current error object. Okay, so let's do that, and then in order to save whatever they typed in the form and not clear it out, we need to add values to all of these. So we can add title, because remember we passed in all the fields, so we're going to add those as values. Okay, so this is going to be technologies, and this will be budget. So text area, we're going to go in the middle of the opening and closing tag, and we're going to say description, and then we have our contact email. Okay, so let's save this and let's give it a shot. We'll try to submit it without putting in some necessary fields. So if I just add a title, we'll just say hello, and I say add gig, we get please add some technologies, please add a description, and please add a contact email. And hello is still preserved because we put that in the value attribute. All right, and just to make sure that wasn't submitted, we'll check out our gigs. Good. So now that we have that error checking, let's go back into gigs.js and let's go down into the else. Now there's a couple things that I actually want to do before we run the create. One is, like I said, I want the budget to say unknown if there is no budget. So let's just check, and we'll say if no budget is added, then let's take that budget variable and just set it to the string of unknown. Okay, and then else, one other thing I want to do is I want to add on the $sign. I want to add the money sign. I don't want them to have to put that in. So we'll say else budget equals the money sign, and then we want whatever is in that budget variable. So I'm actually going to, let's get rid of that. Let's put in some backticks, and we'll put that, and then the syntax to add a variable in a backtick is actually money sign and then 2 curly braces. So we'll set it to whatever budget currently is. So it's just going to set it to whatever the budget is plus a money sign on the beginning of it. All right. Now I also want to edit technologies. because we're asking them to put in a comma separated list of technologies, but I want it to be I want it to go all lowercase. Okay, even if they put in uppercase. Also, I don't want any spaces after the commas, so I'm gonna make it lowercase and remove spaces. So we'll say technologies equals whatever they type in, and then 2 lowercase, which is just a standard JavaScript method. And then let's use replace, which takes in regular expression. So we want to put in a double slash, and we're going to say for every comma space globally, we want to replace with just a comma. Okay, so that's what this does. It takes all of the comma space and replaces it with just a comma. So let's, and there's a lot more you could do here. I'm just trying to keep this simple. Let's say make lowercase and remove space after comma. All right, so now we're ready to actually insert into the database, which we already have that down here. We're using the model and we're calling create, and then we're passing in all these variables. Okay, and some of you may, if you watch my JavaScript videos, you know I always use const unless I don't have to, and you're probably wondering why I used let up here. It's because we need to actually reassign budget and technologies. All right, so I think we're good. Let's go ahead and try it. We'll save this, and let's go back to Chrome and just refresh this page, and we'll try and submit a job. So let's say Flutter dev for mobile app. So for technologies, I'm going to use capital F, Flutter. Let's put a comma space, and JavaScript and Android. So budget, I'll say 4,500, and it should put a dollar sign in automatically, even if I don't do it here. And then for the description, let's see, I'll just open up in another tab the gigs page and copy some of this text. And we'll use that as a description. And then email, I'll just say user3@gmail.com. All right, so let's cross our fingers and add gig. And there it is, Flutter dev for mobile app. And notice the technologies. I know it's in a kind of a dark color, but see how they're all lowercase and there's no space, regardless of how they added it. All right, good. So we have our add gig functionality. We have error checking. We can list all of our gigs. The last thing to do here is to be able to search for a gig. So let's head over to the view. Whoops. Let's go to views and index.handlebars. That's where we have the section. This is where we have our form. And right now the action is going to gigs.html. Obviously that's not what we want. We want this to go to a route of gigs/search, and it's going to be a GET request. It's a search form, so it's fine for it to be a GET request. You want to use post requests when you're actually, changing or adding data to the server. So we have one input. It has the name of term, so that's what we want to grab onto inside of this route right here. So let's save this, and let's go back to gigs.js, and let's create a route for this. So this is going to be, it's actually going to be a GET request. So let's do, say, search for gigs, and we're going to do app.get. Whoa. App.get, and we're already in the gigs route by being in this file, so we just want to do /search. Okay, so we're going to use an arrow function here, and let's grab the term from the query. Since this is a GET request, when we submit this, it's going to be in the URL, and the way that we get that is with request.query, and it will be request query term. Now I'm going to use destructuring to pull term out, so let's go ahead and say const curly braces term, and we're pulling that out from request.query. Now, the way this is going to work is pretty simple. It's not that intricate. If you were building a real production app, you'd probably want to do a better, you'd want to add better search functionality. But we just want to take a word that's put in like JavaScript, React, WordPress, and we want to match it to the technologies field. And we're going to be using the like operator to do that, which if you have any experience with SQL, you've probably used like before for search. Now with Sequelize, if we want to use the like operator, at least with the latest version, I don't think you had to do this before, but you have to actually bring in the op method. Right? Let me just double check that. Yeah. So, or the op object, I should say. So up here, we want to say const op. Well, first we have to bring in Sequelize. So let's say const Sequelize equals require. And it took me a while to figure this out because the last time I used Sequelize, we didn't have to do this. But that's the beauty of web development. Things are always changing, and your knowledge becomes friggin' obsolete. So let's say we want this to equal Sequelize.op, like that. So now, if we want to use the like operation, we can use it. So let's go down here, and we want to call find all, because that's what we want to do. We want to take the gigs and we want to call find all, except we want to specify in here, we want to specify a where clause. Okay, so we want to say where, and then the way that this works is we put the column name, which is going to be technologies, and then we want to put a colon and another set of curly braces, and we want to use our like operator. So we put in some brackets and we say op dot like, and then we want to put a colon, and we want this, we want to look for whatever the term is. Let's say it's JavaScript. We want to look anywhere within technologies. It doesn't have to be, you know, at the beginning or at the end. It can be anywhere. So we actually want to surround it in percent signs. So let's say percent, and then we're just gonna add in here whatever the term is, and we also want a percent on this side. Okay, so it can be, if let's pretend this is actually JavaScript. It can be anything JavaScript anything. That's what this is doing or saying. Okay, so that is our query. Now this find all gives us a promise back. So let's go down here and say dot then dot catch. And so dot then, this will give us our gigs. It'll give us our filtered gigs, not just all of them, whatever matches that particular search term. And then we just want to res dot render, and we want to render the gigs view, and we want to pass in the gigs. Right? Yeah, that should work. That's all I want. Actually, let me see something up here. Yeah, we res rendered up here for find all. We don't actually need these curly braces. I don't know why I put these in. I can actually make this shorter. Yeah, that's better. Whoops, what crashed? App is not defined. What did I do? Oh, I put in app.get. We're inside we're using the router here. This should be router.get. Okay. So let's jump back into our application here. Let's make sure all gigs still works good. And let's try the search. So I'm going to say JavaScript search. Okay, so the React and the Flutter came up because they both have JavaScript in the technologies. Let's search for React. All right, now the reason we got no gigs available is because of the case. Watch, if I search for React lowercase, it works. So that's an easy fix. All we have to do is for the term that we bring in, let's change that to let, and then let's just make it lowercase. So we'll say term equals term dot to lowercase, and that should do it. Okay, so let's try it again. So we'll search for capital R React, and there we go. So that comes up. So let's try one more. We'll do WordPress, and there we go. Actually, let's try HTML. We have that on quite a few on both of these here. All right, so it seems to be working. So we can add gigs, we can list them, and we can search for them. It's a pretty simple application, but it gives you guys the gist of how to use Sequelize. I didn't do any like deletes or updates, but you know the basics of how to use it. So just take a look at the docs and it'll show you updates and stuff like that. As far as authentication, I would like to add some authentication to this app because I'd like to show you how to use Passport with something other than MongoDB and Mongoose. So I may do that. I just need to find time to do it. All right, so that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this series up to this point. I probably will continue it at some point, probably after the holidays. But thanks for watching. Please leave a like if you liked it, and I'll see you next time.